When I was little, my mama used to say to me all the time, Becky, it can make you bitter or it can make you better. And I would roll my eyes because she was my mom. And I enjoyed sitting in my bitterness so often. But she was onto something. She knew the value of choosing not to stay in your bitterness, but to choose to allow whatever is happening in your life to only make you better, to only teach you about life, teach you about yourself, teach you about who God is and what He desires for you and calls you to. And I was reading it in Philippians today, and Paul is writing to the church in Philippi, and he's saying, I am in my chains. He's in prison. He's literally chained up to a guard. And he's saying these chains are good because they're advancing the gospel. He's choosing to be better instead of being bitter. Though he had every right to be bitter because he was doing something that was not just good for other people, but he was also doing something that was really good for God. And I think when we feel bitter, it's really easy to point fingers at other people, but it's also really easy to point our fingers at God. Because if God calls us to do something and then we find ourselves in a messy or sticky or painful situation, it's really easy to say, why did you let that happen, Lord? Why did you do that? Why aren't you taking care of me? Why aren't you supporting me? Blah, 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 blah. So Paul's sitting here in chains, writing to the church in Philippi and saying, these chains are a good thing. And then he says this in chapter 1, starting in verse 20. He says, whatever happens, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then, whether I come and see you, because Paul does want to get out of prison and come and see this church in Philippi. Then, whether I come and see you or only hear about you in my absence, I will know that you stand firm in the one Spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel, without being frightened in any way by those who oppose you. Because life, people, circumstances, we have roadblocks. People oppose us. We don't like that, do we? And yet he says, don't be frightened in any way by those who oppose you. Isn't that wild? Because I can choose to be bitter, or choose not to be bitter, but instead choose to be better, choose to seek the wisdom of the Lord. I can be a light to a dark world. I can love on people. And I can fulfill my calling in Christ.